I think you can like learn to nurture. I don't know. I think that's a skill that men and women can learn.
I agree to disagree. We're gonna have to agree.
We're gonna agree to disagree. Okay, that's fine.
I don't think.
I think you can learn to do that. I don't know.
Hello, welcome to the Fangirl Feels podcast. My name's Tanya,
My name's Olivia.
and we're Fangirl Feels. Pew, pew, pew. We meet every week to talk about all the content, books, movies, TV shows, music that makes us feel all the feels.
All of them, every single one. Which Vanessa Lachey said feels a lot in this Love is Blind reunion, bringing the topic into it. But did you notice that she said feels all the time? I was like, this is why we're millennials. But is she a millennial?
Right. I think maybe she's like cusping older.
Yeah,
She probably is.
she said
I didn't
feels a
notice.
lot. You didn't notice?
Wow. Oh
She
my
said feels all the
gosh.
time. And I was like, this is a little embarrassing for us, but that's okay.
So she's born in 1980. Yeah, I think she is a millennial. She's 42.
Yeah, that's
An older millennial.
Yeah. She said every time she said feelings, she said feels. And I was like, relevant, but also stop.
We could host, Olivia.
You and me. I feel like I would be a really bad host because I would just be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would ask any questions. I'd be like, I understand.
Right, yeah. Oh, I get it. Compassion. Yeah, it wouldn't be fun. It would just be therapy. That's the way we'd run it.
It's like, this is a really unique situation. You don't know how, and they said that a lot, like, you just don't know how you're going to respond. Like, I understand. Everyone forgive each other.
Thank you. Next
Thank
person.
You. Thank
now
you.
It's your time. But we'll dig into that in this episode. We have a lot to talk about in terms of the show. But before that, we have a couple segments that we want to share every episode. The first one is fandom feedback. It's where we share feedback that we've gotten from people who listen to our podcast or watch our YouTube videos of these episodes. We'll post there as well on YouTube. So if you would like to give us feedback, by the way, you can message us anywhere if you find us at any point on Venmo, anywhere.
Please on Venmo. Actually, that would be amazing.
Send us money. That'd be cool. Send us coffee. I'm just kidding.
Incredible, actually.
Or you can leave a voice note. We're dying for someone to leave a voice note on. You got to log into the Spotify for podcasters website, and then you can leave a voice note. So we'll leave a link in the bio of everywhere where we post this. But anyways, we got a couple responses to our past episodes that we'd like to share. So our last episode was about turning 30. Olivia just turned 30, and we talked about how that made us feel on brand. And we talked about different movies and TV shows that had representation of 30-year-olds, or movies that just turned 30 as well. If you listen to our podcast on mobile, you'll be able to access the Q&A questions and polls that we put up after each episode, and we want your feedback. And so these are a couple comments from our episode last week about turning 30. The question was, what TV shows do you consider to be good representation of 30-year-olds? And someone said, SVU, Olivia Benson, still killing it in her 50s. I don't watch that show, but I believe it.
I don't either. I do know that Taylor Swift named her cat after Olivia Benson. I hate that I know that now. Girl. I didn't used to know that.
Girl.
Recently.
You're her number one fan.
I'm not. I really am not. I'm like actually quite not her number one fan, but I do know one of her cats is named Olivia Benson.
I'm kidding. I know a couple of Ariana Grande's dogs, and I hate that I know that too. Toulouse is one of her dogs. Why do I know that?
Well, why? I get it. Because I feel the same. I'm like, I don't want to be this person. This is not who I want to be, but I am.
How do I bleach this information from my eyes and my brain? Yeah.
Right? I don't need to know this.
Someone else left a comment that said, Ted Lasso, almost all of the main non-player characters are 30 plus and demonstrate the ability to grow emotionally, learn self-compassion, and cultivate new, strong friendships as adults. 10 out of 10. We love that, and we agree because we did a Ted Lasso episode, and we love that cast. It's just a feel-good show. Makes you feel good about at any age, truly.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that when we were talking about 30-plus-year-olds, but the entire show is that entire premise. It's true, and I do love that. Like, build new friendships. That's something that, like, when you reach over the age of like 25, you're like, I can't make any new friends. Like, it's over for me. But no, it's not true.
It's over for me.
It's over. Like, no, you could be meeting people that will like. I saw like a quote. I've told you this quote where it's like you may. What's the quote? You have not met all the people who are meant to love you yet. It's like that's so beautiful. That show encompasses that.
Oh, I love that. Gonna print that out. Put it on my wall.
Yeah,
Very cute.
it's sweet.
Olivia, how old do you think Jason Sudeikis is? The guy who plays Ted Lasso.
He's older. I would say he's like in his mid 40s.
Okay, you're spot on. He's 48, and I assumed, just like Pedro Pascal, he's like 47, 48. I assumed he was in his late 30s, to be honest. I thought he was younger.
Really?
Mhm.
I could see that. He doesn't look old, but I think I'm like, now that I'm 30, and the man has been kind of old for a while, like older than me for a while. So I'm like, he can't be also in his 30s because then time doesn't make any sense at that point. So I assumed he was 40s. So that makes sense.
All right, all right. I thought I'd catch you. I thought I'd, pull one on you.
The math in my head.
You just did math,
I did just do math. Mitochondria.
We also put a poll on our 30 plus episode, and it was what show is the most realistic representation of 30 plus year olds? And someone said, New Girl. We agree.
Can I say something? That was me.
That was you, Olivia. Of course you agree.
That was me. Because I do. I mean, besides them again, all living right next to each other. Yeah, I think it is. Anyway,
We're not always plants. We promise. Sometimes, a lot of times, I'm filling out the survey as well. But.
Yeah, we sometimes we just like we start the engagement because we're a new podcast, so we just like we kick it off, encourage people, you know. And this episode just got released 2 days ago, so that's something also to note. Like, we might not read what you commented right away. Like, it might be an episode later, like 2 weeks later, because we record, recording schedules. So like, yeah, sometimes it's like we just released this episode literally 2 days ago. It is now Tuesday. So anyway, important note.
We should describe our process at some point because it's like the wild, wild west out here. Sort of. No, we have some process. We can tell you.
Yeah, we actually are doing a pretty good job. But point being, this sometimes the math sometimes is confusing on this, and we have to start prompting some engagement, and then we make it up for this. But these were real comments, I swear.
Speaking of, do you want to read the next one?
Yes, I can. So this was on the episode for comfort content, which was the Ted Lasso episode, the history of Ted Lasso. And we asked, what are some other comfort content, books, movies, and shows that you consider? And this person wrote, anything in the Grishaverse. This person's name was Addie. Her name is Addie. Anything in the Grishaverse, also Gilmore Girls. She also said, thank you for making this episode. It was so interesting to learn about how Ted Lasso started. So nice. You're welcome. That was all Tania's idea, and she did a great job with it.
That was a good episode. That was one of my favorites that we've done. I just enjoyed learning more because I did learn stuff I didn't know, and it sounds like this person did as well. So that was so wholesome. Thank you for saying that. That's so nice.
Yeah.
It made us feel
very
good.
Sweet. Very sweet. And I also agree with Gilmore Girls being comfort content and Grishaverse. Both. Agreed. No notes.
Would you all like us to do an episode about the Gilmore Girls? Let us know.
I got a lot to say. I could lead that discussion because I am a Gilmore Girls child, a child of the Gilmore Girls era. I grew up with that show. I love it.
I feel like I've only seen like 2 episodes, and I feel like I'd like it because it's the same creators as Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I love that show. So maybe
You absolutely would. Yeah.
Do it for the pod. I'll binge it for the pod.
Yeah, if you like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you will like Gilmore Girls. Yes, same kind of cadence, same talking speed, same like, sometimes the main character is not your favorite, but you still root for them, that kind of a thing.
Love it.
Love it.
Our next segment is Fangirl Finds. And in this segment, we talk about the most recent things we've consumed from books, movies, TV shows, music, etc. We might focus on only a couple things just to not make it long. At least for me, I watch too much stuff and I consume constantly. My eyes are just always open. I never blink, and just stuff is being put into my brain. So
I should get that checked out.
I know. I gotta go to the doctor. My bad. I've watched a couple things, and I kind of want to save some of them for our next episode. One of them was horror themed. It was called From, and it's from the creators of Lost, and it's so good. It's so good. I'm gonna wait to talk more about it next week after I've binged more episodes, because I'm wondering if it still holds up. I've only seen like 2 episodes. Lost is my favorite show, and they have some of the characters from that show in it, so it's nice to see them come back. The next one that I'd love to recommend, and I think you'd like it too, is called Single Drunk Female. It's on Hulu, and it follows, I think she's a comedian in real life. It follows this woman as she realizes she's an alcoholic, and she goes through like the program, Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what it's called, in her hometown. And it's really cute, and it is wholesome. It covers comedy. It's funny. It's also like serious at times, obviously, because they're talking about alcoholism, but I've really enjoyed it. And it's been a show I've been recommending to people if they just want, a funny, silly show to play in the background.
That sounds fun. You said it's on Hulu?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I'd like funny, silly shows in the background.
Do it. After you finish Abbott, just move over. Just like, all right, next one.
I was going to say, I caught up with Abbott Elementary this week, which I am caught up. It's just every week at this point. So I should just watch it afterwards, yeah.
Which is awesome. I haven't expected that. Like, I thought they're doing the cool thing of like TV shows from when we were younger where they drop like 30 episodes a season. I love it.
Yeah. It's so rare nowadays when everything is like you are part. It's literally like I think of it as like dehydrated. They are making us dehydrated as you drink water. They really are though. They're making us dehydrated for content. I'm like, I need more. I need more than just this like little tiny shot glass of content that you're giving me. These episodes. Ridiculous.
They're too short.
They're too short. 9 episode seasons that last like 45 minutes and then they don't come back for another 5 years. This is garbage. I hate it.
Preach.
I hate it so much. I met someone who actually said that they liked it. And I was like, must be nice. They like that there's only like 9 episode seasons.
Can't relate.
Can't relate. Yeah, I think they were just like, oh, it's just nice to like have it to be like easily consumable. I'm like, how are you not? Then you are not as engaged as I am.
Right.
You
They're
are
not taking things personally. Okay?
No.
That's what they need to start doing.
You need to make this your entire personality. That's the problem. You have a healthy separation between yourself and this media, and like, sorry, can't relate.
And now they're no longer your friend.
And now we actually don't speak anymore. It's over. The friendship ended in that moment.
It's your sister.
But literally, I was just like, how does someone do that? How does somebody just like have a healthy relationship with content, with like a television show? How?
I don't know. A couple years ago, I related to Olivia on the fact that we both have obsessive personalities. Like you mentioned the word, I never had a word to articulate the fact that I dive headfirst into things, just spiral, like where it affects you emotionally on a daily basis. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we should have thought of this idea before to start this podcast.
This is literally why the podcast started, because I don't know if you can do this. I could like tell you the timeline of my life based off of like stories I was really invested in that time. Can you do that?
Same. Yeah. Yes. Same. I remember where I was. Yeah.
Yes. I could I associate times in my life. I literally break up my time, like the timeline of my life based off of that. Oh, middle school, that was like my Danny Phantom era. And then but I had like my Harry Potter era in between. And then my Twilight era was my freshman year into like my junior year. Like I could do that. This is not okay. Like hyperfixations, as like TikTok has called it now.
Yeah. What do other people do? How do you measure time? If it's not through content, fictional content.
If it's not through, obsessions with fictional content, how do you look back at your life?
Yeah, similar to like playlists, like music. I'm sure you can relate to this too. The music I was listening to, the music that dropped at that time, like what I was going. Why do I associate certain periods of my life with Ariana Grande's albums? Why do I do that? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. No, I do the same. I like to think that one's actually a little bit more normal. I create like playlists based off like different seasons. Like now, like I'll have like a spring 2023 playlist, which I'm like working on. And then when I listen to those songs, it will remind me of like what I was feeling during summer of 2017, like it'll associate that. Or yeah, there's certain albums like the Boys Like Girls album. that came out in like 2006 reminds me of like one summer in 2006. You know, yeah, there are things like that.
I do that too. I wonder if other people do as well. Yeah,
I hope
I'm
so.
sure
I
they
hope
do.
it's
Let
real.
us know. That'll be the question.
If we need psychological help, please tell us.
Yeah, psychologists. That's our target demographic now. Please help us.
This is actually our like submission to therapy. Is this podcast? Anyway,
Back to our topics. Olivia, what have you been watching recently? What is your fangirl finds?
so I didn't mention this last week, but I am a Shark Tank enthusiast. So I have been watching Shark Tank. It is just like a weird quirk of mine. I love it. It's really weird. So I caught up on Shark Tank, Abbott Elementary, and I started Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I actually haven't finished the episode, but I have started that, which I know we want to talk about that in one of our episodes in our podcast. But then of course, Love is Blind, which is relevant to our conversation. I was one of the many, you and I were one of the many who stayed up waiting to watch the reunion live. We got bamboozled.
Bamboozled.
Bamboozled. I'm not proud of it, how much I tried. I am not proud of how many times I reloaded that screen. I was like, is this who you want to be, Olivia? Is this really what you want to do Sunday night?
This is how you'll define your life? Yeah.
Yeah. I stayed on way longer. I'm pretty sure you pieced out earlier.
Well, Succession was on, and I like to scroll Twitter to see reactions, to like dissect stuff with people on Twitter. And so I have to watch it when it comes out. Otherwise, I'll be spoiled. I try and avoid spoilers. Spoilers? So,
Spoilers.
but that's why. But yeah, but
Fair.
you stuck around?
I stuck around until like, because I'm Central Time, so until like 7. Wait, no, 8. It started at 7. So I think I stayed around until like 8:30, which is an hour and a half later. And then I was like, this is embarrassing. Please, you need to leave.
So I have a intro to this topic from my perspective of my experience waiting for this episode. I was waiting all day. I was excited. So the time was 7:50 EST on Sunday evening on April 16th. And I was just wrapping up cooking for me and my partner. I made some nice pita sandwiches. I made some homemade hummus. I was like rushing a little bit. I didn't know if I could rewind the live showing of the Love is Blind reunion. And around 8:09, I rushed to the living room and I realized it's not showing. I'm put into the waiting room purgatory, just like everyone else. And at 9 p.m., I switched to HBO to watch Succession.
It's a beautiful story. I mean, it really had like momentum in it, and I understand what you were going through, and it really put into perspective the suffering that we encountered during this, right? Like we all look forward to it. We all had plans surrounding this, and they failed us. Netflix dropped the ball on us.
I think the greatest part of that situation was scrolling Twitter. I think we were the funnest time I've had in that Slack group is every time there's something happens in the world, like we just all go on Twitter and like screenshot tweets and share it with each other. So funny. Like AOC dropped into the chat. Like that's hilarious.
I thought that was like a fake account at first when I saw that. I was like, there's no way this is actually AOC, but it was actually her, which is amazing.
Right? Girl, she's just like us. She's just like us.
She's just like us. Twitter is the best. Like Twitter's a hellscape, typically, like 99.9% of the time. But when there is a major cultural event, it is the place to be, without question. It is the prime location. It is floor seats to a Taylor Swift concert. It is prime location.
It becomes our prime news source. Like literally, honestly, like not in a joking way. Like sometimes if something's happening, people on the ground are posting there. And now TikTok is the same.
But TikTok's not as like, I mean, TikTok and we're having a little bit of a rough time at the moment. I'm not its biggest fan, but you can't trust it to like show you live updates. Like when that was happening, I was like, I can't go on TikTok and see how people are reacting to this. It's so much more difficult to record a video than it is to just like write a stupid tweet, which the tweets were amazing.
we wanted to talk about really quickly, if someone hasn't heard of what Love is Blind is, for anyone who's been under a rock for like the past 5 years. Love is Blind is a reality show created by Chris Colin and produced by his own company, Kinetic Content. It's where 15 men and women are initially paired in a speed dating format where they are placed in soundproof pods where they can't see each other. They date for 10 days and they only meet face to face after a marriage proposal is accepted. They then head to a resort where they meet other contestants, then head back to the city where they're from, and they live in apartments together for 3 weeks where they also plan their wedding. And they can end the engagement before then, but we suspect that the producers encourage them to make the decision at the wedding. And based off past experiences from like Jessica season 1, the producers, she knew she didn't want to get married to, I think, Mark, and they pushed her to actually say that at the wedding itself. A little shady, that's okay. Some fun facts that I do want to include because I think it'd be funny, like context for the rest of our discussion. Chris Colin, the creator and producer, has been the executive producer of dozens of reality TV shows since 2007, including Married at First Sight, Little Women, Secret Millionaire, and Don't Forget the Lyrics, and like countless more. If you go to his IMDb, there's a long list. You're going to be scrolling. And it's just funny. He's been doing this for years. And he finally hit his other shows were not famous. Like this one is pretty big, I would say. In an interview with Vanity Fair, he said that the premise of the show was to strip away the distractions of modern day technology. And this is a quote from him. Obviously, there's a lot of dating apps out there, but I just felt like maybe there was a different way to meet people. And I felt like sometimes that was universal, is that everyone wants to be loved for who they are. So I feel like some people could relate to that aspect. Like I can understand now with the pods that like it's counter to the apps, which have been really popular for the past decade.
Yeah, I've said this before. I'm not opposed to the premise of it as like a legitimate dating premise, actually. I think there's a lot of legitimacy in it. The issue is the fake stakes of marriage. Why we force them to marry after, what did you say, 10 days and 3 weeks to plan a wedding? Unnecessary. Yeah. Unnecessary.
It does sound interesting. Like I'm very happy with my partner, not single, but like I'm interested to try it as like from an experiment perspective. Like, could I fall in love with someone, just talk to them? But I would not be a fun person to film. I don't think I'm entertaining enough. How do you think you'd do on the show?
I definitely wouldn't. I'm not like, I'm worried about two things if I was on the show. One, I'm worried about like, cause it just shows kind of like the worst sides of you sometimes. And so I'm like scared of like who I would accidentally be. I'm like afraid I would end up being like terrible, like Jackie or something. I'm scared.
We should talk about that because like I do think the edits like did everyone dirty. Like I actually don't like hate anyone. Obviously, don't dislike anyone, but I also think like they purposefully edited her to be the bad guy. And it worked. It always works.
It always works. It's true. The editing is probably really unfair. And like at the end of the day, the only people who know how it went is them. But that's part of it. All of it is fabricated for stakes. It's not like for entertainment. It's not like if this was like a legitimate dating thing, we could give them the benefit of the doubt, but it's because it's also on television and it just is like you can't, it's all fake. Right. It can't all be real. It's weird.
The producers do meddle a little bit. Like it's not entirely non-guided. They do obviously interfere a bit, to the point where they're saying like they before they enter the pods, they say things like, here are some like starter points you can use as talking points, So in that way, they do bias them a bit. And so that would affect the editing. You know what I mean? They do have a narrative they're trying to build as they're building out the show.
That's fair. Yeah, because how could you control it otherwise? Like you are filming this for television, has to have a compelling story somewhat. You do kind of have to cast people in certain parts to create some predictability.
There's one thing I do want to mention about that. It's actually pretty interesting. So apparently in the pods, when they pair people up, they use a computer software called the Gale Shapley algorithm to structure the pod dates. And this is a quote: "The women give rankings to the group of men by preference and vice versa. The algorithm produces the intended result of a relationship that's on firm footing. The matchmaking algorithm can effectively yield at least one successful pair for any given number of grouped individuals, regardless of the provided preference rankings." This is from an article I saw from screenrant.com. So did you know that?
No. Whoa, my mind is blown. I actually did always wonder how like the dates were scheduled. Like I assumed in the beginning everyone just meets with everyone, and then afterwards you just kind of like decide who you want to date. Yeah, I was curious, but I didn't realize there was like an algorithm. That's wild. This is like that episode of what's that scary show?
Black Mirror?
Black Mirror. Yeah. There
Yes.
was like an episode of Black Mirror that kind of feels like this where they like simulate dates. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
they
about?
literally go into like little pods. Yeah.
Yeah. Is this not Black Mirror?
Oh my
Uh-oh.
gosh, that's also one of my favorite shows. I love that show. That's so funny. It's spot
That
on.
seems yeah, it seems on brand for you to like Black Mirror. That makes sense.
It's April 18th as we're recording this. We haven't seen any reasoning from Netflix as to why the live stream crashed. We have assumptions as to what happened. Probably just too many people, right? How are you going to stress test that? And apparently they use AWS, and no hate or shade to Amazon, but or the AWS team, but all the hate and shade to Jeff Bezos always.
Always. Without question. I feel like it can't be that hard. I don't know. My like basic understanding of this, like if I can go live on my phone, this can't be that complicated.
Why didn't they just do an Instagram live?
Yeah. Why didn't they go do TikTok live? I watched all of Taylor Swift's concert on TikTok live. I should be able to do that.
So thoughts
Okay.
on the reunion. We'll share our thoughts about each specific couple and person. But before we start, I do want to say I think it's interesting that they've had a year to think through their answers. Like, did you feel that some of their answers were rehearsed?
I definitely feel like, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't know if I thought about it, honestly. I can just like imagine how uncomfortable it is to watch something that you've moved past a year later, which I think like Chelsea mentioned that, where she's like, just so you know, this has been like over a year. I'm like over it. I think that would be kind of weird to be like, have to rehash some of that you've kind of like mentally worked through. So I don't know.
It's like
Yeah.
bringing back trauma. I agree. I don't know how they'd fix that. Maybe they could. That's true. Maybe they shouldn't do the reunion live. Maybe they should do it like for them, like soon after or something, like the season ends, because it's just been too long. Like I felt like Kwame and Chelsea specifically, I thought Kwame rehearsed a couple of his answers, which is fair, right? I think we'd do the same thing, right? So they've had time to like look on social media at people's reactions and react to it. And I think he handled a couple things well, specific to like his name, and then like what else? Times where he talked to Micah. I feel like they were trying to make him a villain at least like on social media, and he came out well.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't leave with any sour taste in my mouth with Kwame. He and Chelsea, I mean, everyone was so anti them, thinking that he was not into it. Maybe he just doesn't show affection that way on screen. Like I saw like TikToks of psychologists analyzing like Chelsea's body positions with Kwame and how she's so overbearing. It's like, dude, he didn't have to say yes. Like he could have said no. So like if he was not into it, he could have just said no. I don't know.
That's crazy. People need
People
to
are
stop.
nuts. He's an adult.
He's an
He's like
adult.
what, 32? He's an adult.
And there's so much we didn't see. And also they know they're being filmed. Imagine we knew we were being filmed. We'd be so different, you know?
But also some of these people kind of sucked sometimes. So I don't know about that.
It's odd knowing that they were filmed that they behave this way. So we'll get
Yeah.
to it.
Yes, with one particular person, especially.
I did want to mention that Kwame was on Married at First Sight in 2019. So he was on another reality dating TV show and that show was produced by Chris Cohen, the guy who made Love is Blind. Did you know that?
I didn't, but I've watched that show. And if Love is Blind is bad, that show is hellfire. It's so bad. It's awful. Horrible show. It's really bad. But I know he didn't make it far, did he? I'm imagining he obviously didn't get married.
I have no idea. I didn't look at like how far he got. Yeah, maybe he didn't.
He has a relationship with this guy. What is his name? Chris, what did you say? Yeah, Chris Colin. He's a relationship.
Yeah, I
with him.
wonder if Chris keeps a roster of participants on these shows, because some of these people also, like Barstool from last season, tried to be on Too Hot to Handle, which is another show he created, but then like was declined or whatever. I don't know what happened. And then so they put him on Love is Blind, which is like totally different goals, different types of shows. So I think he just keeps a list and like, this person would be great, you know?
It sounds like, yeah, just like a roster of like attractive people who want to be on these shows. And you're like, good. Yeah. I'm sure they do like screen tests and stuff. Like, I'm sure it's more complicated than just like, we want singles.
Yeah, Probably. I mean, they're using algorithms out here, you know what I mean, to decide who
Yeah.
dates. And I believe it.
Yeah. True.
So the next person we want to talk about is Irina. And like everyone else, we also didn't like how she acted on the show. Like she knew she was being recorded and was so rude to people. Like, what? You know you're being recorded. Why are you laughing at people? They're catching you.
Why are you laughing at people while they're crying in front of you? Like, I actually didn't remember that part when they were airing it. And I was like, what the F? Like, what? Like, what world would you think that's okay to do? Yeah, especially while you're being recorded. Like, sorry, I don't have any sympathy for that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me how that would happen.
Right. Yeah. Like it does suck that she did that on like a show, like where she got roasted and she got cyberbullied, which she didn't deserve. I'll say that. Like people can be shitty and it sucks, but they don't deserve to be cyberbullied. But I did appreciate her apology. And it sounds like she made amends with people. So that's good.
I hope so. Yeah, of course. No one deserves to be cyberbullied because then we're no better than her, right? Like, then we're no better than the person that bullied. That's the point. But yeah. I like don't understand how you could be that kind of person. But I hope. What did Bliss say? Like, Bliss was really kind about it. She was like, I hope you grow from this. Like, I think you can be a better person. I'm like, girl, giving her a lot more grace than I would. I'm like, okay.
I know. I do think that again they've had time to think about it, so they've had time to like hash it out. If we got the reaction soon after, you know what I mean, after the altar, I feel like it would have been different because they wouldn't have had time to talk. It sounds like they all have a group chat or they're talking on social media.
I would imagine. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, what else did Bliss say? Or like Zach, he was like, I know how, like, we're the only people that can understand what it's like to go through this experience. And because of that, I forgive her, which was just like it was a really good thing for him to say. And it made a lot of sense. I was like, wow, very mature. Yeah, you've had time clearly to like process this. But I'm like, this girl sucks.
Yeah. I don't want
Not
to
to bully her. Yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't like want to be your friend. No, which I don't think they are friends. I can't imagine they're friends, even if they're in a group chat.
Seems like she's not even friends with Micah anymore, who didn't catch any heat for the way she acted either. Like she was also a part of the bullying in a way.
It's true. They both were laughing. They both were doing those things. Yeah, they were both kind of mean girls. I'm like, that's not cool at all. Well, the only person that caught heat was Micah's friends, the girl Shelby, and then the other girl, I forget her name. Ruby, I think. I think Shelby and Ruby are her friends' names. And those are terrible friends. Horrible friends. I hope she's not friends with them anymore, although it sounds like she still is. But if my friend was laughing because my wedding ended and she was happy it ended, we're no longer friends. Like
it ends there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter that you were right or like you're happy that it's over because you didn't think it was right. You don't laugh while I'm crying. Like what psychopath do you have to be for that to be your reaction? Like truly.
Yeah.
Like you don't take pleasure in someone else's pain even if you thought it was going to happen. Like it's just that pissed me off so much. I was like, girl, why the F you laughing? Like
Yeah.
why are you laughing?
And you know how this like you're as good as the company you keep or some like I do think like her friends are a representation of how Micah's personality actually is. I do think so. And I think that probably played into like Paul's decision.
Oh yeah. No, I think it is important to take into account people's friends when you are like, yeah, because it is a reflection of them, what they prioritize and what they want. It's going to be in their friends. Absolutely. And yeah, I think it does speak negatively to her. So I hope she grows from that and finds new friends.
So the receipts that he was talking about, I thought he was spilling tea about like receipts like in regards to Irina, but apparently the receipts were he talked on his social media about how he learned through forgiveness by forgiving his mom, and he like his mom was I think had certain mental health issues. He was able to forgive her, and the receipt was like something his mom had written for him. So that's through that process he's able to forgive Irina.
Maybe that's why he used that word so that people would go to his Instagram and then he can share that message, which is nice. Very good. Good work, sir.
Great marketing move.
Great marketing move. Way to be the bigger man. And that is very mature, which I saw people be upset how mature this was. And I was like, I'm proud of them. But people are like, it's not more enough drama. I need more tea.
We want them to physically fight.
I want an altercation on the reunion.
Yeah, this isn't Bravo, but I wish it was, to be honest. So I wanted to get your thoughts. So after Vanessa and Nick talked to Irina and got that whole situation out of the way, they talked to Paul and Micah about their relationship. What are your thoughts?
About Paul and Micah, I where do I begin with Paul and Micah? I understand why they said no. I didn't believe, or why Paul said no. I didn't believe their relationship for a second, if we're honest. But I think that the editing was strange because for so long, Paul was the one that was like, I'm so confident in this. I have no questions. Like he was the one that was totally fine. And she was the one that was unsure. And then that kind of switched in the weddings where he was the one like so unsure. So that was weird. And then him saying that like he just didn't think she was nurturing enough, and that being like, yeah, I'm sure there was more to it, but the fact that it was like such a focus in the reunion, I was like, I don't understand. And I am also confused as to like what this means and what you're saying, dude. Which I know is controversial. I know you have a different opinion about this than I do.
Yeah, that is true. The editing definitely got them for sure. Like I agree that like before the reunion, the editing made it seem like Paul was more committed than Micah was, especially because they showed Micah with like Kwame and like
Yeah.
so I thought, and Paul the whole time like had no issues, like never approached Kwame about that, but Chelsea did approach Micah about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. He was always like the one's like, I'm so confident in this. I don't even have to like, I don't even think of that because I'm not even considering it. So you don't even worry about Paul. You're like, he's good.
Right. And then he's like, no.
And then he's the one that says no. And you're like, what the fuck happened?
I do think it was weird for Micah to switch it up and have him say what he's going to say. And she said her reasoning was like, she didn't want to be embarrassed by saying yes. And then him accidentally saying yes. And then they end up being in a relationship that isn't real. It was just odd to me.
I've seen people say that they think it was like so that she could be the victim. I think that's like not giving her the benefit of the doubt. I think, so what did she say in the reunion or in the finale where she's like, I was not confident in his love for me. The best thing I could do was like to let him answer, and like hitting him answering no, like confirmed to me that like what I was feeling was correct. And I can understand that. Again, the editing, it makes it really hard to follow along because yeah, up until that point, I never believed that Paul was the one questioning it, but then he was the one to say no.
Yeah.
So it's just like I think yeah, they're victims of the editing that I like don't know how to like what to fully believe, because if what she said was true, then that wasn't true in the editing. And if what she said then wasn't true, then she was just manipulating the situation so that she looks better.
So we were talking earlier about Vanessa's questioning of Paul and Paul's reasoning for saying no, and the whole situation with thinking that Micah's not mother material, was not maternal in any way. His reaction, like the way he phrased it, yeah, I would want more context. It was odd to me that that was the first time Micah had learned about it, was watching the show. Like, I feel like if that was your reasoning, she should know before then.
Yeah, and his excuse of being like, that's not something you can like tell somebody to be. Well, also like, what does that mean? Like, that's why when like Vanessa Lachey was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I also was like, I don't understand what you're saying about this. Because then they also made a point where Micah was like, I told him that I want to be a mother. And he told me that he wasn't sure if he wanted kids or something like that. And he knew how important that was to me. So it being, I was just like, I saw like TikTok was upset about this, about like them all understanding him and them and like Micah and Vanessa not. But I was like team Micah and Vanessa. I was like, I don't understand what he's saying. This doesn't make no sense to me.
Yeah. We actually disagree on this point because I agree that like he should have said something earlier and he didn't up to that, but I felt like what he was trying to describe was like noticing a fault in her personality, and you can't just change your personality to marry someone. And so it was just like weird that like Vanessa kept digging and digging down this line that was like, it sounds like he already described his reasoning. Like, yeah, is it like something that he should have talked about and might be personal with Micah? Yes. But so later on afterwards, the next day, Vanessa actually sent him flowers, and he posted this, Paul, on his Instagram, and it said, thanks for acknowledging the accidental misleading from Paul posted this, and they were from Vanessa. So Vanessa agreed that she like led him down a path that was potentially misleading in his reasoning for him leaving Micah. Like he was made out to be a villain when I don't think he should have gotten as much heat as he did.
I see. Like that maybe the focus on the nurturing wasn't really what it was. It was just like that there was a personality fault. Because I can understand that. Like if there's something in her personality that he is just not vibing with and like does, and you can't ask her to change her personality, that's fine. The nurturing thing didn't make sense to me. Like specifying nurturing, I was like, I don't understand that. Like I don't get that. That is something you can like learn to do, and it's also like seems like counterintuitive. Like she's saying that she wants to be a mom, so I don't know what that means. Like yeah, that was strange. So if that's the explanation, then that makes a little bit more sense.
I actually disagree. I don't think that's something you can learn. I agree with him on
Really?
that point. Yeah, being nurturing. And like they did talk about it, I agree. But maybe he didn't believe it. Your partner notices that you might not be a good parent. I can see that as reasoning to not date someone. But I do think that Vanessa took that offensively because like as like attacking women, right? She's not being maternal. I do think she
Yeah,
had like some sort of bias play into that. Her
fair.
attacking.
Yeah, I think there was something there. But I don't know. I think nurturing is something you can learn. I think you can like learn to nurture. I don't know. I think that's a skill that men and women can learn.
I
don't
agree
know.
to disagree. We're gonna have to agree to
We're gonna agree to disagree. Okay, that's fine.
I don't think.
Like I think you can learn to do that. I don't know.
I do think it comes innately. Like I do think like as if you see someone who like interacts with pets and they're not nurturing, you know, like that's like a way to like this is incredibly subjective, you know? So we'll have to see.
Fair.
Let us know, everyone, your thoughts on this discussion.
Yeah.
I think that what we can agree on is that it's just like too short of a time for them to tell. I think like and they tried to date and perhaps there were other reasonings that like led to them breaking up, but like, yeah, that particular perspective is like 30 days. That's not enough time for you to know that. But yeah, afterwards he did say
Yeah.
it was more complex and nuanced, which is fair. Probably to all of these situations. The next couple we want to talk about is Marshall and Jackie. But we should say it was just Marshall there, and then it was Jackie and Josh via Zoom. And I do have some context that wasn't said. I don't know why, maybe to make Netflix look good, but apparently Jackie and Josh received death threats previous to the reunion, and they wanted to come. But because of the death threats, Zoom was an option that Netflix recommended. And so even though they wanted to come, Netflix opted for the Zoom call instead of coming to the reunion. So just for context, because I
Wow.
also thought she was dodging, you know, being questioned. So
That's wild. Also, so unnecessary. Who is sending death threats to these people on a stupid reality show? Like, go touch grass. Truly.
right, people got too invested. Again, editing. I don't think she's as bad as everyone's making her out to be. I think she's dealing with a lot
Yeah.
of mental health issues, and everyone's like, get her out of here.
Yeah, I'll admit I was not her biggest fan. I mean, while watching it, I was like, she's being annoying, but yeah, I'm sure no one's a villain. We are all complicated people. And that was just not her best moments, maybe, that were on screen, which is unfortunate. And she said that. She was like, I've grown from this. Those are not like me in my best light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like her father, she's mentioned this, is like has cancer. And so that's what she was dealing with like at home. And I think that, you know, if I'm only thinking like if I was put in her shoes, like I would not react to things the same way as I would if I was in a normal state of mind. And in that case, I do question like why she went on the show is all. Like if you weren't
That's
ready,
what I
it
was
seems
gonna
like she
say.
wasn't ready. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. I'm like, why'd you go on the show if you're dealing with so much? If like you're not legitimately trying to find somebody, which that's a whole question of the show in general at this point. Like, are people actually in it seriously?
Yeah. Truly. Yeah. And now that Love is Blind is getting so big, yeah, I think people are just on it to be famous, to be honest.
Yeah. But she didn't know she would come out as like kind of the villain. But if you're not like willing to give it a legitimate shot, I think you're inevitably going to come out as like some sort of villain in this.
Yeah.
To some extent.
I agree. So my thoughts on the Marshall and Jackie grilling, the questioning, was I thought Marshall got a lot of the heat from Vanessa that he did not deserve. I really like Marshall, and I thought he's like level-headed. He handles everything from like a mature level, someone who's been maybe had conversations like this in the past. Like it seems like this guy goes to therapy. And like I felt like Vanessa was very nice on the calls the Zoom call with Jackie and Josh, but then was so rude to Marshall. I didn't understand why.
Yeah, I agree. And Marshall, it sucks. Like, I really understood when he said, like, this was taken from me. Like, the ability to even say yes or no was taken from me. And even like the ability to respond to Jackie was taken from me. Like, I think the way he verbalized that was really, yeah, mature. And also, I was like, that, yeah, this sucks. This guy's gotten the short end of the stick in this entire experience. And the fact that he's even here is a testament to his character in a lot of ways. Like, if it was me, I might just be like, I want to put this all behind me. I'm kind of just done with this. It did nothing for me. And I have no desire to rehash it. So he's, yeah, I agree. He's very mature.
And it's a whole year later, you know, they've hashed it out. And like she's been in a happy relationship with Josh, and he mentioned this. So it's like, that's good. That's why he had that perspective, which is why it was weird that, like, I think Vanessa went into it wanting more drama, but everyone had had time to heal. And she's like, but this has to be entertaining.
I wonder if that's like something in their scheduling, like the fact that they're recording these things so long ago. I mean, it was like what, summer of 20. When did they record this? Do you know?
I think it was the beginning of last year of 2022.
Okay. So they had like a little over a year and a half, let's say, to like process. Yeah. I mean, that is a long time. It is, it's like, and then when you're given such a terrible experience like Marshall did, yeah, he didn't deserve that. At the end of the day, he just probably wants to like never think about this again, which I understand.
I audibly yelled "what" at the screen when Marshall was explaining, like, feeling like he always gets the short end of the stick, and in this scenario where like he wanted to go through and go to the wedding to make that decision, and like, and now Jackie's not there. And then Vanessa said, "Have you put into consideration the woman you thought you were going to marry's feelings?" Excuse me? What? She's like, why
What?
are you going after him?
Excuse me?
Chill
What?
out. Jeez. It, like, in that sense, I'm like, she's taking sides, and I don't know why.
Yeah. I don't know why in that particular moment. Like, he didn't do anything wrong, honestly. He literally didn't do anything wrong in this entire scenario, besides what he said to her. Like, he said that mean comment. And that was not nice. But I can totally understand where it came from, not justifying it. I understand where it came from. Like when he was describing the story, I'm like, we've all been there, right? Where you think you're kidding, but you're also like kind of not kidding because you're being mean. And so then you say like something that you think is on par, but it's actually really hurtful. You know, we've all been there. So I get it. But he treated her so well, regardless. And like, yeah, otherwise, like, really didn't do anything wrong. She was the one who was like not bought in for varying reasons, which is okay. She didn't have, she could say no also. It just sucks.
Well, it seems like they moved on. Now we want to talk about Nick and Vanessa hosting the show and our thoughts on their hosting styles. It's just funny that like Nick just like reads the cue card and then turns, and that's it. And he's just in the background just nodding.
Yes,
he's like not, he doesn't
indeed.
need to be there. But Vanessa,
No.
I wasn't a huge fan of the way she's like, she probed or didn't probe into super specific conversations, and just her reactions and the way she attacked certain characters or actors, whatever they are, castmates. But I do want to say the whole asking people if they want kids or not was weird, and to bring Bartise and have him share a picture of his kid. Or it was recorded. They showed a video of Bartise with his son, and then they went around in a circle and asked everyone when they're going to have a kid. And it's odd because, number one, in this political climate with like women's rights being taken away, people might not be having kids. Number two, that's such an individual, personal decision. And also, if they're like trying to have kids but they can't, you know how bad that might feel, and they might not have kids. Lastly, like, it's just bizarre.
I thought in like the year of our Lord 2023, we understand not to ask about children. Like, we've collectively understood that there could be a lot of reasons as to why people are not having kids, some of which could be very painful. So do not ask. None of our business until they tell you. You keep it to yourself. Your thoughts on kids.
It's just got to a point where I'm like, did they all like sign something where they're like, I want kids, you know, like, and I'm able to, where she
maybe
knew?
they sold their firstborn child to them as payment to like Nick and Vanessa, so they're just like asking for their payment at this point, you know. Where's our children?
I believe it. Yeah, bring them to me now.
Bring them. now. Yeah, that it was really awkward. And also, like, yeah, like some of them are a little bit older. Like, there could be reasons. Like, we just should not be assuming of
Yeah,
anything. Let
no
let
assuming.
people live. Yeah.
Truly. Olivia and I are both UX researchers, and so like sometimes I was just like, probe. Like she would get to a point where I'm like, they're telling you something, probe, ask more, dig deep, and she just didn't get there sometimes. I was like, there's only an hour. You need to go deeper on some of these topics. But then she chose to like go down other rabbit holes. So I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah. I can agree with that. Having talked about the like nurturing thing, I can agree that was a weird rabbit hole when there are other things that like put Paul in a weird box maybe that like he didn't want to be in, where like he just like he can just say I just didn't feel right. Yeah, it was just I agree. All this to say I agree with you. It would be cool to have somebody who's experienced it to interview them, because then it comes from like an understanding of the background.
So I found a couple funny comments that I thought you would also find funny. But someone said on these are all on TikTok. Nick looks like he's been disassociating for the last 20 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The man contributed 2 sentences and then stood like this.
So, anyways, who do you think won the reunion? If we had to choose a winner, again, it was not a competition, but we're gonna just choose one.
We actually didn't talk about Zach and Bliss that much. Oh, I mean, we did, but I actually think
forgot.
Zach and Bliss won the reunion, if I had to say.
I also think it's good for Bliss for being so into her man that she doesn't care about his cringe singing. I thought that was so cringe, but she was
It
like
was really
looking at him
cringy.
in his eyes, saying like, you know, I love my man. But I agree. They seem the most like and also Brett and Tiffany. But I think like the growth,
They
we were
got
able to see
0.
growth with like Bliss and Zach.
Agreed. Yeah. Like Brett and Tiffany, I think because we knew they were perfect, we didn't get like any focus on them. They barely spoke in the reunion. But Zach and Bliss, I was like, I wasn't opposed to them, but I was just like, I don't know, this is a weird couple. So they like, yeah, surprised me. Like how she defended him. They like kind of stood together. They were like a power couple. Yeah, she like the cringe singing, she loved it. To the point where like you could hear people laughing while he was singing, but then it also kind of changed into Oz because I think people were like, "Oh, she likes it. Okay, let's not be mean." I think they won. I really do. I walked away with the most like most improved opinion of for me was of Zach and Bliss.
I agree. I was gonna choose the same person, and also maybe Marshall. Like, you know, he went
Yeah,
through a lot this season, and it seems like he had the most growth, and he seems like mature and just ready and comfortable in himself. And I think that's hard for people to be in that space, you know?
yeah. I really liked their like him and Brett's relationship. Like I actually thought while they were like showing it throughout the show, I was like, did they know each other outside of the pods? Like were they friends before? Because they had like such a cool bond, and apparently they never did. This was their first time meeting.
Well, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about some behind the scenes secrets, some things that I dug around for. I dug through a couple of articles to find this information. So we talked about how the show works and how they use an algorithm, which is very cool to pair up people in the pods. One thing people might not know in terms of the process is that the Netflix provides the rings. So it was kind of weird that Jackie wanted to keep the ring, although it is good context to know that like it wasn't Marshall's. If it was Marshall's ring, she should have given it back for sure. But like if she just want to keep it. Also, the whole situation with Marshall wanting to propose to someone didn't seem real. It seemed like it was a lie. So,
Yeah, fair. Yeah, it's like no one bought that ring, so she can just keep it. It's whatever.
right.
Yeah.
So also after they're done filming, they get about 30,000 hours of raw footage. And knowing Livy and I edit our own videos, and it takes a lot of time for just an hour video. So 30,000 hours, that's nuts.
Woof. I do not want to be in that room editing. Woof woof.
Big no.
No.
So I was curious about like how much people pay for the wedding. Like if you're part of the show, my assumption going into watching these shows is that Netflix pays for everything because they got money, right? They got Silicon Valley money. They can pay for it. But apparently they don't. Apparently they don't pay for anything. So this is from an interview that Netflix did. They said basics including the venue, food, and music if the couple goes through with the wedding is covered. However, anything additional must be paid by the couple getting married.
Wow, interesting. Well, they give them the venue because they all get married in the same location. So I guess that would make sense that maybe Netflix has like a deal with the venue. But wow, okay, unexpected.
Yeah, that's one of the big. So there's like some like logistics they obviously have to do because like wedding venues are hard to find, so they have to book them ahead of time, and it's also you don't know who's going to make it. So they did say something about the venues as well. It's hard to book a wedding venue 2 weeks out, so we ahead of time make sure we have a really nice venue that accommodate weddings, and we don't know how many weddings are going to be, so we have it booked for a period of time. It's a little scary, but it makes it fun. Don't want to be a part of that logistics team. No thanks.
No, but that makes sense. That makes the most sense. There's no other way this would work.
Yeah, you got to be creative with that. The producers also pay for the apartment that they stay in, which is fair because like why they all live in that city or close by. So it's like if they got to choose, they would just go home. So it makes sense. But when it comes to paying for hair and makeup on the show, the women on season 3 specifically spent their own money. So Colleen from season 3 said she married unfortunately Matt. She said that she spent
Fair.
around $4,000 on hair, clothes, and makeup during her time on the show. That's a lot of money.
Wow. During the entire show?
Seems it didn't dive into like specifics, but yeah, it sounds like the show, like the entire show. What that's like, a month or two.
Wow. That's a long time. Yeah. Wow. It's expensive.
It is. And I was curious, like, so does Netflix pay them? Because you're using their likeness and like their personalities. And so, it's different than other shows where you're like competing to win money, you're just on it to find love. But according to, and we'll get to this in a second, apparently there was a lawsuit by a contestant that sued Netflix, and through the lawsuit they found out that Netflix only pays the stars $1,000 per week and up to $8,000 for the length of the filming of the show. And so I would expect a lot more. Netflix can pay them more.
That is nothing. $8,000, that's and $1,000 a week. These people are out of a job for a while.
Yeah.
Like what do they do about their jobs? I always wondered that. Like, do they just go on like a leave of sorts, like a medical leave or
Right.
what?
I do
Sabbatical?
remember someone saying that they quit their job to be on the show. I forget who. But yeah, I am wondering, like, how are you all able to, like, hey, see ya, I'm going to go be on a reality show. Who's going to let you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like, I mean, I guess they are going to work during the part where they're back home. Maybe they just take 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Use up all their PTO. Gosh.
Probably. And then they get married. What do you do? This is very confusing.
Yeah, the logistics. That team. Give them
Yeah.
more money. The logistics team. Because no
This
one
is
wants to do that.
$1,000 per week is not a livable amount of money. That's
No.
insane.
It's not. And it's nuts, like a huge, like multi-billion-dollar company. Netflix. So it's nuts.
For a show that's really big now, like they should be paid more. I was expecting like
Yes.
at least 20, 30,000.
Same.
Especially if nothing else is getting paid for, like they get the basics of the wedding and they have to pay for everything else. Like, no. You should at least pay for the whole wedding. Like everyone gets like a set package that they can like customize, sure.
Yeah.
Which I guess maybe that's what they do. But they should pay for more.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised that they don't pay for everything for the wedding. And I agree, like perhaps somebody wants to go more outrageous with the wedding. Sure, maybe they can foot it themselves. Like, but I agree that they should cover most of it for everyone.
Yeah. Yes. It's the only way that's fair. I wonder what this lawsuit was about.
Yeah.
You're going to go into it. Okay.
So the lawsuit, the only reason I knew about how much contestants were paid, and to be fair, this guy was on season 2, so they might have increased it since the lawsuit, but the lawsuit claimed that through a combination of sleep deprivation and isolation and lack of food and excess of alcohol, all either required, enabled, or encouraged, the Love is Blind producers created some inhumane working conditions that altered the mental state of the cast. And this was from a contestant, Jeremy Hartwell, in July 2022. He was on season 2, and he mentioned that they only pay them $1,000 a week to be on the show. And so that's nuts. Good for him for filing a lawsuit, because I agree, like, you're literally like stuck there. They take away your phones,
your connection to your loved ones. Like you can't even, like, your parents don't know how you are, your siblings, your friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do drink a lot of alcohol. Combination of sleep deprivation, isolate. I agree with all of this. This sounds terrible. That's fascinating. It really puts this into perspective. I have no desire to go on the show.
Right, yeah. After reading that, yeah. It seems, yeah.
0.
You'd have to be in a really good mental health space because you're going to basically torture, you know?
Yeah, and, like, you don't know how you're gonna come out on the other side, like, a year and a half later, when people finally see it, you just, like, don't know. You maybe you have a suspicion as to how you behaved, how you'll be, like, portrayed, but you also, like, don't know. Like, how much of a
Yeah.
villain am I going to be? We'll see.
Right, like your depiction is based on the person you end up with, you know, and they could be terrible, you know? So there's
That's
too many
true.
variables.
It's true. You, like, just could be a reaction to the person next to you, and you're like, "This person just, like, brought out this side of me." I don't know, or, like, that yeah, you're right. There's just too many factors. Very weird.
Yeah. Well, that was our episode. Any last thoughts on Love is Blind, Olivia?
Oh, this was good. You did a lot of good research. This is very interesting. The show is more complicated than I think I realized, and it's still the McDonald's of TV. Married at First Sight is the Del Taco, like horrible. Don't.
No one would consider it as
No one would consider it.
And then Love is Blind is Taco Bell. You'd go to that one. You still won't feel
Yes.
great afterwards. It's not your preferred choice to feel better, but you enjoy it and you do come back.
Exactly. I'm glad you understood what I was trying to say. That's exactly it.
I got it.
Love is Blind is absolutely Taco Bell. That's actually a great equivalent. Perfect. Thanks for listening again to this episode of Fangirl Feels. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave us a comment, respond to the Q&A if you're listening to this on Spotify. We love your engagement. Please engage with us. We will post it on our Instagram, and we will mention it in our next podcast episode. There might be a delay, like I said earlier, like week to week, but we will mention it because we love your engagement. Please follow us across socials. We're Fangirl Feels Pod on Instagram and on TikTok. We are on YouTube, but under my YouTube, it's just VVIVAA. If you want to watch the podcast at some point, we may create our own channel, but for now, it's on my channel. Please follow us on Instagram. We'll put all the links in the doobly-doo, like Tanya said. But otherwise, we will be back next week with another episode. We should have like a secret word where we're like, if you made it this far, comment this word. It's actually a good idea.
We'll do something like send you something, or we don't have anything to send, but
yeah, we'll make the word barstool in reference to Bartiz.
Yeah,
right barstool.
Yeah, right barstool on our Instagram post promoting this,
and we will send you something. We will DM you something to be TBD. What it will be. It'll be a surprise. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
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 3, 2, 1, yeah.
I love it.
Woo!
Whoa.